The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves. For my yoke is easy and my burden light." The Gospel of the Lord. God reveals his name in this first reading. Again, it is hard to underscore how impactful and life-changing this event was. The God of the universe reveals who he is. And remember the impact of the name. There's intimacy with the name, just like with any human relationship. If you meet somebody for the first time, you ask them, "What is your name?" And that's the beginning of a relationship, isn't it? I mean, you couples in here, you know, when you first hit on your spouse when you were still young, the first question was, "What's your name?" And then unfolded was an entire life together. Same thing here with God as he reveals the unutterable name. The Jews do not utter this name, by the way. It's so sacred and holy to them. He reveals his name, and towards the end of the first reading, it says that I will draw you out of the misery of Egypt. This is the Christian story, by the way. You see, our Christian life isn't a single event, but rather it's a process. And it will be a hard process. We see this foreshadowed in the first reading again. It says in the first reading that, as God says, a few times it's said here, that the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. That key name there, Jacob, you find it in Genesis chapter 34. And in Genesis 34, it's a powerful story of Jacob, who was a descendant of Abraham, and his character was more of a trickster, a deceiver. He loved to, as we all do, he loves to maneuver in order to get a better, higher position, to acquire more. He swindled his brother Esau out of their inheritance from his father. And then as that whole story, when he tricks his brother, and as he's crossing one of the major rivers in Israel, he has a dream. And in this dream, he wrestles with an angel. This angel turned out to be God. And he wins in this wrestling match with God. From that moment on, Jacob's name is changed to Israel. And he would become the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, of the chosen people. And in his new name, it is utterly profound. Israel literally means those who wrestle with God. In other words, those who struggle with God. Because every single one of us in here knows that just because we have a relationship with God doesn't mean our life is peaceful now. No, the life just gets more hard. Because all of a sudden, this God who has revealed himself to the Jewish people, I am who am, now requires a certain demand upon our life. See, this is why whenever unbelievers say, "Oh, you Christians, you guys are just using God as a crutch," I said, "What are you talking about? My life is harder now because I'm trying to follow God." Because why? If I have no God and I make a God in and of myself, I'm beholden to nobody. And I live as I want to live, I do as I want to do. There's no requirements upon me. Why this famous line, especially young people, "I am spiritual but not religious." Have you ever heard of that before? That's a cowardly approach to life. Why? Because I just want to have nice feelings, but then I reject all of the demands of organized religion. And that's an easier path. But the chosen people, culminating in Jesus Christ, are those people who are struggling with God's will. Because to die to ourselves is never easy. To go to Mass every single Sunday, despite whatever happens in my life, to be faithful to the third commandment is hard. Not to lie, not to cheat, not to commit adultery, not to steal, not to be jealous of my neighbor's wife, my neighbor's goods. All of that is hard to do, to be holy. But, and here's the great fruit of this type of life as we wrestle with God like Jacob did. Listen to what Jesus says. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. What our Lord is saying here is, walk the narrow, harder path of being a disciple of Jesus Christ. The more demanding, the higher, the harder path. And that path, even though it's hard, in the end, is actually lighter and will give us that deeper peace which goes beyond all understanding and which this world can never provide. But it's hard because it's a wrestling match between us and God.